Hello and welcome back. Today we're talking about inference parameters for generative AI. Now, once you're doing working with inference parameters, you likely see the following ones. And we're going to go through all of them today. But first, let's remember or recall how inference actually works. So here we've got inference of a model. It's generated, so it's answering one of your prompts. It's generated the following words: I hear the hoofbeats of, and it needs to generate the next word, which was going to come after that. Now, it's going to be dependent on your prompt, of course, but what it does is it's generating the next most likely word that would come in this sequence of words in response to your prompt. And what happens in the background is it has options, right? So it goes through all possible words and it looks at, okay, so the most likely word is horses with a 70% chance. Then it's zebras with a 20% chance. Then it's donkeys with a 5% chance. Then it's giraffes with a 2% chance. Then it's unicorns with a 1% chance, and so on. So it's got these options that it's calculated and it's going to need to select from. And your inference parameters help it understand how to make this selection. So let's go through them from top to bottom. So this first one, temperature, is going to adjust the distribution, flattens the distribution. And what that means is if your distribution looks like this, so for example, you can see here 70, 25, so it's very high for the first word, then it's lower, and then it drops off very quickly. So the first and second word have the highest distribution. Well, the temperature, the higher it is, the flatter the distribution will be. So it will adjust the distribution to make it flatter, to give other words a higher chance, like a fighting chance of being selected. So in this case, the distribution might go from this one that it's calculated to this adjusted one using temperature. So you can see the first and second options, their probability went down and the rest of them went a bit up. So now for unicorn, instead of a 1% chance, there's a 3% chance of it being selected. Now that's what temperature does. So just remember for the exam, the higher the temperature, the flatter the distribution will be. Basically that's why it's kind of like if it's very low, think of it this way: it's very cold, and means this distribution doesn't change. It's very high, like in this case 1 is the highest. It gets very hot and fuzzy and everything like moves around, and these ones like get their chance of being selected. Now top P, what that does is it says, okay, the options that you can actually select from are the top 85% in this case. So it basically looks at the combined probability. So 60 plus 15 plus 10 is 85. And then it will select just from those options. So it won't go any further than that. So it's only going to select from horses, zebras, and donkeys if you set it to 85. If you set it higher, obviously it will include more options. And top K, and just remember P because P is probability. And top K is basically, it's very simple, limits to the top K in terms of quantity, in terms of number. So if you say 100 here, it's going to select from the top 100 options. Now, these work in combination. So whichever one is smaller, that's the one that's going to win, right? So in this case, top K is 100, but top P results in just 3 of them. So it's going to select from these 3. But if you set K to 2, then it's just going to be selecting from horses and zebras using these adjusted probabilities with the temperature. So there we go. And so in this case, let's just recap. What will happen is it'll say, okay, top 100, but this one says top 3. The temperature is this. So it's got these horses, zebras, and donkeys, and there's a 60% chance of selecting horses, 15% chance zebras and donkeys. So basically, it will use these probabilities. They'll need to be readjusted to add up to 100, but you can see roughly how much likely. So in some cases it'll select donkeys, more often it'll select zebras, and much more often it'll select horses. So that's the result. But there is some creativity. So the other thing to keep in mind is if you want more determinism in your model, then you should set your temperature to the lowest number and use small k and small p, because then it'll just be selecting the first option all the time. But if you want more creativity in your model, you want to set a high temperature, a high p, and a high k, because then it's going to be selecting for more options. So that's randomness and diversity. Now, the other parameters are quite straightforward. We've got maximum length, which basically says what's the maximum number of tokens in the response. And stop sequences, you basically select here what words, when they come up, the sequence should stop. So for example, you could say here, jumping. would be the word. So whenever the sequence is generating words and then it generates the word jumping, then the prompt or the response would stop at that word. So there you go. That's inference parameters, and that's how you can control the behavior of your model during inference. Here's a quick summary of what we discussed. I look forward to seeing you back here next time. Until then, enjoy the cloud.